joined by incredible panel of experts today who bring diverse perspective and deep insights into how data shapes the way we innovate, compete, and of course, sustain our businesses. Let me please introduce our esteemed panelists here today. We have Bulent Brad Yasser, the CEO of Equivy, and also the specialist in blockchain innovation with extensive experience in technologies that, of course, require the quality of data. We have also Dr. David Urban, an AI entrepreneur and investor, the CEO of Actioneer AI, who has spent years inventing and innovating the startup ecosystem through data-driven strategies. We have also Dr. Faris Al-Gunair, AI and data advisor, bringing insights in both public and private sectors application on AI solutions. And of course, we have Mr. Vivek Malhotra, the head of technology, infusion and acquisition at Google, who lead over than 15 billions on deep tech integration and initiatives involving AI, big data, and IoT. So together, we will dive deep into how high quality data shapes innovation. And let us start, to get started, I would like to invite each of our panelists here to share their perspective on how data quality plays a pivotal role in their respective fields. So let me start, please, with you, Mr. Yasser. Could you please begin by sharing how high-quality data shape strategies, decision-making, and business growth, particularly within the decentralized system, and of course, like your expertise?
Thank you. Thank you, Mohammed. It's an honor to be here in Riyadh. I just want to give a little bit of background on where I'm coming from. My second startup that I exited was a big data startup in the late 90s, early 2000s, and we learned a lot from the importance of data quality and structure with that project. But fast forward to today, there are a lot of new technologies emerging right now. Decentralized systems like blockchain and hash graphs are now emerging as backbones of new types of business, new types of economies and community engagement models. And of course, as soon as we talk about blockchain, data becomes a very, very important aspect just because the quality of the input determines the quality of the output. So regardless of the system used, whether it's central, decentralized, the way data is absorbed into that system and qualified is going to determine how successful the processing, the decision-making based on the set data is going to be. And this is further accelerated and improved by AI. So you put a decentralized system and an autonomous decision-making process on top of it. Now you've taken a lot of the human controls that we used to have manually processing data. I mean, if you go back to the times where data was on sheets, people looked at it, it was relatively easy to spot mistakes, spot inconsistencies, and see areas where that specific entry needs to be discarded or edited or fixed in some way. Fast forward to today, now there are machines doing things that can make life-changing decisions for us, from autonomous driving to autonomous investments to everything in between, the AI we use in medical tech and others that are very mission critical, where you can't have mistakes happen during the automated processing and decision making branches. And the quality of data plays right into that. If we are able to get good data, or at least get the data, then qualify it, see what needs to be done to make it usable and valuable, then the output is incredible, because these new systems that we have are able to really enhance human productivity. However, if the data coming in is of low quality or imperfect or erroneous, then you fall into this situation where a lot of the steps of the process are completed with that data that shouldn't be used. And then you're left with an output that's equally corrupt or unusable.
Will say, and I cannot agree more. Let us move forward with you, Dr. Urban, giving your work in AI business solutions. Can you share how high quality data has catalyzed AI-driven innovation and improved strategic outcomes for startups, especially?
I would like to tell a couple of anecdotes with respect to this. I started in AI in the 1980s. And at that time, we had very ambitious aspirations around what AI could do. There was a company called Hecht Nielsen Corporation, HNC, produced a hardware accelerator that, for the first time, using neural networks, could reliably recognize numbers, handwritten numbers.
Interesting.
And that was the start of applying neural networks in financial applications.
Yes.
But exactly because the available data was of low quality and covered not many fields, the promise of widespread applications of this particular technology and approach couldn't be delivered.
Interesting.
Now, fast forward 30 years or 20 plus years, I think it is incredibly important to acknowledge and to highlight that the current revolution in AI, the exciting and powerful applications of deep learning and other types of neural networks that we are seeing, are actually due to the effort of a person where she started from collecting, cleaning, and then providing a new data set for others to use in order to catalyze their efforts. And this person was Fei Li at Stanford University, with very little money, with very scarce resources. For over 2 years, she spent time to collect and clean and make available millions of images labeled accurately, so with high quality, that became the basis of the ImageNet competition at MIT, which in 2012, with AlexNet, for the first time performed at human level and then superhuman level, and really ignited the enthusiasm that we are seeing today. Because even though we are all very much aligned with the objective results of scientific research and their applications, it is also the case that we are human beings and we need to see that our efforts can produce what is needed.
Yeah.
And so that is why these fundamental steps are so powerful. And I think it is important to remember, it is high quality data that started the current wave of AI revolution.
Very, very insightful. And to go forward, Dr. Faris, based on your experience on AI projects and of course in the academic level and also doing research, can you please share some example where data quality directly impact the success of AI-driven solutions or initiatives?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Maybe any data scientist, the first thing they hear if they go to work, garbage in, garbage out. garbage data in, always garbage output of data science or AI project. Usually, all AI products should have a constrained set of data in a controlled environment. I'll give you examples. Let's have a factory that have bottles in a conveyor belt. The factory want to use machine learning using cameras to detect if there is any defect on the bottles on the conveyor belt. So we have a lot of problems just in taking this picture. We have lighting problems, inconsistent lighting, shadows, glaring, and we have also dust that will come to the cameras. We have low resolution cameras that will not capture enough details. So all of these will affect the AI model that will detect the bottle. From machine learning perspective, it is very easy problem, but if you give it this, let's say, garbage data, it will be very, very difficult to solve. So factories usually have controlled environment that will have the best lighting and scenarios to capture the image, and that will lead to good results. Another example in conversational systems for speech, if you want to recognize speech recognition for two people that talking through phones. It is also have a lot of challenges. For example, we have noise, background noise, some people talking behind you, mixed voices, some people talk at the same time. Some people also have mixed language. We talk sometimes Arabic and English at the same time. So all of these are difficult for speech recognition. And some solutions are suggested as noise reduction, speech enhancement, and also some, if you can also, for each speaker, you can have separate channel. These are two examples for data quality and how can it affecting machine learning and AI projects.
Very, very, very interesting examples, and thank you so much for sharing that with us. So let us move forward. Mr. Malhotra, in your role at Google, you lead a very big team there in Google. How does data quality influence the development of integration of advanced technologies, and what strategies do you use to maintain it across diverse markets?
Thank you, Dr. Mohammed. First of all, I want to say I'm privileged to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the good arrangements, intellectual conversations, overall structure, involvement of the government, academia, business people. It's really heartening to see all this here. To your question, and as every panelist have said, data is the bedrock of any application. Forget about AI application. AI application becomes more important. Garbage in, garbage out. And the scenario that we look at, before I go to the scenario of how we evaluate the data quality of startups and acquisitions that we are doing, imagine you are in Netflix, and Netflix have a recommendation engine. If data is incorrect and you get an incorrect recommendation, what will be your feeling and experience around it? Go further. If you are an Uber app, data coordinates are shown wrongly to a driver in some way, for some reason, it's screwed. So you can imagine all these applications that are coming, they are data dependent. We call data is the new oil. We also call the label data is gold for a reason.
It is gold, yes.
Now, how do we evaluate? We look at the AI startups across the globe and look at the ecosystem of data, which is essentially having 4 portions to it. One is the plumbing portion. Second is the operationalization of data. Third is the data quality. and the fourth is the governance of data quality. Now, each of these four areas, and plumbing is basically what are the sources of the data, is it real time or not? Is the sources IoT sensors, manual data, punched by somebody, or coming through a satellite, coming through a camera? All those avenues are explored from data quality point of view. With regard to operationalization of data, so processing the data which happens real time to make these applications work, how trustworthy that processing is. Are the algorithms working on that particular data, giving the results in a way, and we have multiple tools to test that out. That's the area we focus on very discreetly when we are evaluating startups. We look at definition of data quality.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the companies, they claim they follow the ISO standards, but these applications are so cutthroat and they can impact the lives of the people that we need to go beyond the standards, look at the boundary cases and how they are evaluating. And again, there are tools which help curate the data to meet a certain quality, and there are a lot of startups around that as well, which have come, and very successful ones. Then the governance picture portion comes in, which is basically how do we avoid the bias? How do we protect the privacy? How do we ensure the access rights? Not everyone should be accessing every data. So what is the framework that startup is following to manage the governance is also our focus. These are the four areas where we focus on when we are evaluating the robustness of the data structures in a startup. Did I answer your question?
Of course, yes, and very, very, very interesting and good insightful thoughts. So let us move forward for the second point of this discussion, the data quality and innovation. So to start with you, Mr. Yasser, as someone deeply involved in blockchain technologies, and as you said, it's required the quality of data for sure. And of course, the emerging technology. How do you see data quality acting as a catalyst for innovation in the blockchain space, and what competitive advantages does it offer at the end?
Well, I'm going to assume no one here knows about blockchain, so we can keep it at a simple level. So what we're doing is we're taking centralized systems like server clusters that are owned by a government or by Google or by Amazon, and remodeling that data retention in a way that's decentralized. So instead of a trusted party like Amazon holding your data, we're saying we're going to break it into pieces, and it's going to be held by thousands, tens of thousands of different people, entities, servers, computers. So at that point, once you decentralize something, you gain a lot of trust. It becomes a trustless system. You don't have to rely on Amazon servers being up because now you have 10,000 fail-safe locations. If 2 of them go down, there's still 9,998 of them still running. So it has its advantages. The disadvantage, the main disadvantage with decentralization is the way blockchains are designed. Once something is written and recorded, it's immutable. So it's not random access. You can't just access the data from 20 years ago and say, well, there was a mistake, let me fix this so the logic corrects itself and recomputes and everything's okay. Obviously, that has great advantages, like you can't do double spend. So for anything relating to finance, value transactions like money and markets, that's very useful. For other applications where you may have to modify it, it becomes very difficult. You need to build something on top of it to make that possible. That's where oracles come in. What we call an oracle in blockchain parlance is an entry point where outside data that doesn't natively reside on the blockchain infrastructure is pulled in. So where data quality, both from an opportunity and a challenge perspective, comes into play is at the Oracle level. Let's say I want to put all banking records on the blockchain. Well, at some point, the genesis point, I need to pull old data from all the systems and put it onto this new structure. How do I do that? How do I guarantee and standardization and the quality of the data that I'm pulling in? That's where data quality becomes very, very crucial, because if you pull good data in and you do the necessary steps to put it into the format, the structure you need. I mean, we can talk about unstructured data that's out there, or just different types of structure. I mean, even the record-keeping modules of two banks are not exactly the same. The data is not recorded as the same. One bank may have customer ID first, then the name, then bank account information. The other may have bank account information, name, and then the ID. To us humans, our brain works so fast, it's the same thing. We look at it, we know what a name is, but when you're talking about a non-human way of processing, that's very different. It has to be labeled, it has to be restructured and translated between the two systems. So what blockchain does is it speeds up that process. Once you connect an Oracle and you pull the data in, now everyone is using the same structure. Because given a certain blockchain, and for those of you who don't know, there's a lot of different blockchains and layers on top of those. So you can have thousands of different ways to have the data decentralized. But once you get to that level, now that's a common ledger, a common data source. And that, to this day, outside of decentralized systems, doesn't exist. Even if we look at the SWIFT system, SWIFT participants have to provide the transmission data in a specific format to SWIFT. Yeah. But up until that point, it's not compatible. So a Citibank cannot send their information to a local bank here and expect that that data is going to be absorbed as is and work. They have to translate it into SWIFT. SWIFT then sends it to the central bank here, then they translate it into the local data model, and then it's processed. And with blockchain, we eliminate that. Once you're on the blockchain and you accept whatever the framework of that blockchain is, everyone is using the same thing. So it really speeds up international, global collaboration, cooperation in a matter of minutes, right? So you don't have to really wait too long. Some blockchains, it's a matter of seconds that you can move incredible values, highly sensitive information communications. Those of you who are familiar with diplomacy are familiar with the diplomatic bags and the government notices that go back and forth, even to this day, sometimes only in a printed format, a written format, because it's highly sensitive and should not be transmitted over unsecure systems. You can use blockchain there to fully encrypt and decentralized in a permissioned manner, not decentralize your internal communiques to foreigners, but to different government nodes, and do that instantly without the need for the diplomatic sealed bags and things like that. So the application and the opportunities are immense, but it starts with the Oracle bringing in the outside non-blockchain, non-decentralized versions of the data into the infrastructure.
Very interesting. And that's why most of the researchers says that we want the quality data standards using blockchain to raise the outcomes at the end.
Absolutely. For the first time in our history, we have a reason to have standards. And ISO has been doing a phenomenal job in the past decades for different segments of our lives to bring a certain level of standardization. But with this, we have an opportunity to not only accelerate but also have global standards that anyone who connects to that specific blockchain can adhere to. And
Well
I
said.
think that's very enabling.
It is, and thank you so much. And on that level, I know you, Dr. Urban, you work hardly with the AI-driven platforms and innovations. In what ways does high-quality data accelerate innovation and make businesses more competitive, especially when leveraging AI?
The opportunity for innovation to improve products and services is accelerating thanks to the technologies that we apply to the processes that we use to design and deploy those products and services. And the next step is going to be to think about the business models themselves. How can we increase the speed of change in how companies, startups, enterprises, or even countries collaborate efficiently and sustainably using advanced technologies. And the role of AI in this, I think, is fundamental, especially the latest generations of tools made non-structured data accessible. Generative AI is wonderful in the sense of being able to analyze and help human leadership make decisions in a faster but well-informed manner. Now, the question of data quality becomes important in this dynamic scenario because of the speed of innovation that requires a fine-grained, sure-footed set of controls in the feedback mechanism.
Yeah.
If you are driving a slow vehicle, let's say a horse-drawn carriage, just very slowly moving along your path, if the horse gets distracted and wants to eat something on the side of the road, well, you will have plenty of time to correct and bring the carriage back to the middle of the road. Nothing happens. But if you are inside a rocket taking off, accelerating with all the engines, and you have cycles of sensor feedback that need to be in a millisecond cycle, then certainly decisions need to be made rapidly and reliably. And if you are not able to do them, maybe because your sensors are faulty and the data that you acquire is of low quality, then it is a guaranteed disaster. Yeah. And today, that is what we are seeing in a lot of scenarios where not only innovation is very fast, but the speed of innovation itself is increasing. We are all familiar with Moore's law that for over 50 years dictated in a kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy through the common effort of thousands of engineers all over the world that yes, the next smartphone or computer that you would buy will have more power, and approximately doubling power every couple of years. Statistically speaking, this has been true for 50 years, an amazing development. However, recently we have started to take advantage of a new type of innovation, where rather than the doubling rate being constant, it is itself shrinking, and the rate of innovation is increasing. I call this the paradigm of jolting technologies. And if you go and watch almost any presentation by Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, he will show charts that on a logarithmic scale show an exponential curve. It is the representation, a graphical representation of a double exponential, of an increasing rate of innovation, of a shortening cycle of doubling power. And if they were merely following Moore's law, they would have increased the power of their AI systems in particular over 10 years, less than 1,000-fold, which is already amazing. But what happened is that they increased it more than 1,000,000-fold because it is a new type of innovation. And this is why the types of planning, the types of control, the types of execution, and the types of feedback that we need must be based on not only quality data, but quality that is itself increasing. You know, sometimes quality is the measure of not very good data, but it is already reliably not good. Well, we have to be able to execute product and process and business model innovation on our ability to close this high feedback loop, and that it can only be done with high quality data.
Very interesting. And on that terms, we can see like Elon Musk company, SpaceX, how the power of AI very, very useful like for every single things. And you mentioned like the change in milliseconds, and this is how we can see. And if you want to elaborate more on that, Dr.
I'm only an external observer of what various companies do at the forefront, like Tesla and SpaceX and others. X.AI, which was recently in the news for their ability to deploy a cluster of NVIDIA servers for their data center in record time. And it is definitely the case that in each of these operations, acquiring and using data at high reliability, at high speed, is a key component for their success.
That's right, that's right. And on that level, I can move forward with you, Dr. Faris, based on your experience on the academic level, and of course, like the data science and AI. How does data quality influence the ability to achieve accuracy and reliable predictions and insights to gain competitive advantage? What do you think about it?
If you consider data for a company, for example, or an organization, there are several quality that we think about. For example, we need complete data that cover all cases we're interested in. We want correct data, and also we want context data that fit our context. So the first one is we will have better predictions, and our prediction will be more accurate. This is no-brainer. But also we will have less bias in our predictions. And bias will be introduced if we have imbalanced data, in any case. Some examples are groups of people or gender equality and inequality. But if we consider it more, sometimes we can cover bias in hidden areas.
Yes.
For example, here in Saudi Arabia, Riyadh attract almost every jobs and also all government considered in Riyadh. So for any business owner that want to open something, all data will be about Riyadh. Sometimes other regions, but Riyadh is have the most data. So this is kind of bias that we want to have an eye with and see how can it affect our decisions. Also misrepresentation. And this is a situation that happened to me personally. I live here in Riyadh, in Shagra Street. Shagra is another city. So I have a shipment, and when they call me, they deliver it to Shagra City, not Shagra Street. So this is a huge mistake in data quality, and they can solve it very easily in the input form for the address. Also, it will affect the confidence in the decision taking in the organization. And also on the opposite side, the confidence customers have in the company. And this is also one situation I faced if you call a company, it was a telecom company outside Saudi Arabia. They replaced the tone-based choices with speech recognition choices. And I absolutely can't do anything. So this is a terrible example. And they, after several months, returned to tone-based choices. I think these are the major points about the impact on the quality.
We'll say. And we can move forward to business now. Mr. Malhotra, with your background in leading deep tech acquisition, I remember you said you led more than 15 billion acquisitions in the past with Google, acquiring good companies. So how do you see data quality influencing competitiveness across global markets and new technology integrations?
So it's 15 billion Google and Intel put together, so it goes beyond Google.
Yes.
Yeah, I tend to agree with all the panelists on what they talked about the data quality. I do want to put in a couple of more points which we use to answer your question.
Yeah.
First of all, let's look at what database application does. Okay? If you look at the view of it, personalization is a big thing, right? If I'm on Strava and I'm running every day, Strava captures my data, right?
Right.
Then decision making is a big thing as well, like applications, autonomous car, we are taking decisions all the times, right? Then global reach comes into picture as well, like Airbnb is open to the whole world, and if I am in US and I'm going to Riyadh and I'm looking for Airbnb, the contextualization would come in. Okay. Apart from data quality, which is very important here, the creativity in capturing the data also comes into play here. Okay. Let's go back to an example. Waze. Waze was a map application which was launched around 2013-14. They tried to creatively capture data, crowdsourced it, where cops are standing. So you can, if you're getting that detail, that on a highway, cops are standing at this area, you can reduce your speed to avoid getting a ticket. That's a very creative way of getting some additional data than what other maps applications were getting, okay? And they made it big because of that, right? Another side is Spotify. Spotify contextualizes your presence based on where your location is, whether it's day or night, and it recommends music based on that. Of course, past history of what you've listened to comes into picture, but additional contextualization comes in based on whether it's day, night, whether you're close to the ocean, whether you're in the home, or all that stuff, okay? Another aspect comes into Amazon recommendation engine, okay? It watches all the clicks that you do, okay? So apart from what you're buying at that point of time, it is continuing to recommend things on the bottom. It's basically collecting your data and recommending things. There is another, people who love watches, buying watches, they must have heard about a website, at least in US, it's a New York based, it's called Joma Shop, okay? They collect your data on watches you're looking and continue to pump deals around those based on the time you have stayed there, again, collecting data. How much time did you spend on looking at the details of the watch, okay? This creativity in applications always enhances the functionality from business perspective. That's our observation, and we always look for the ways, identify how startups have tried to creatively contextualize and gathered more data about the users and what are they proposing after collecting those details. That's the area we look at in the startup ecosystem.
Amazing. This is very healthy environment and great achievements. So let us move to our last point here. We want to elaborate more on sustaining growth and building trust through the quality of data. And of course, when we say quality, the other terms comes after quality sustainability. So let me start with you, Mr. Yasser. As a leader in blockchain innovation, and how does data quality contribute in building trust in the decentralized system, and what role does it play in sustaining long-term growth for businesses using blockchain?
Well, that's an easy one. I mean, we talked about systems making recommendations. We talked about systems guiding us, or in David's example, assisting with very rapid and mission-critical decisions. If the recommendation, if the assistance is incorrect, you stop using those systems.
Yes.
I mean, obviously, in the example of a rocket launch, that's a failed launch that goes up in flames, so that's not a good example, because we want a way to continue and learn from what happened without loss of life. But any other instance, whether it's Spotify or Google Maps or Waze or anything you take, if the recommended path, if the recommended action, recommended match is not a good one, now we feel less trusting towards that system. And if it's good, now we feel more trusting of that system. Now, this is amplified in the world of blockchain and decentralization. The easiest example is decentralized finance. So in blockchain, there are automated financial advisors, to simplify it, where they tell you you can participate in this project or buy this token or invest in this asset, and you should do better than the market average. As those recommendations become a reality and you see the results, it builds trust, and that trust enables you to not only continue using the platform and the service and the business, but also become a higher value client, right? So in retail, it doesn't work as much because you can only buy so many shirts or trousers or watches, glasses, even if the recommendation is 100% accurate. So the system says you should buy these shoes, and you buy them and they fit perfectly and you love them. You're not going to necessarily go and buy 100 more of the same shoe. Most of us wouldn't do that. Now with decentralized finance, if you put in $1,000 onto a platform, it turns into 10,000, and you have the means to benefit from the platform more. You may this time put $100,000, and then that becomes 10 million. Now you're like, this is working. So the business growth with good, reliable data that leads to good outcomes is exponential. And I use DeFi and finance as a very simple example that anyone can relate to, but you can extrapolate that to any business, any decision-making process. The more wins you have together with either your AI assistant or your human counterparty at the business you're interacting with, but who is using really clean, validated, meaningful data to make that recommendation, the more business you want to do with them, because it's a positive outcome, positive relationship. So for any business growth that relies on data, I mean, we can think of logistics, shipping. Most of us have done trade, at least locally, if not internationally, I'm assuming. And you know, when you're shipping something from one country to the other, it can cost you $100 or $2,000. If you're working with a good agent who knows how to do all the qualifications and understands the codes and everything, it costs very little, and they have the routes already mapped up on what is the most effective way to get you from point A to B, given the time period you want to spend for shipping. But you add, you know, very clean data that is available now because of all the IoT devices and beacons and everything that has been embedded in, at least in the shipments industry. Now you have really clear paths. Like, I'll give you one real world example. We do trade with some of our portfolio companies with Asia and North America. And one of the latest shipments was routed through Europe. It usually is never routed through Europe, but because they had really good data and bandwidth on the ships and other vehicles involved in the journey from Asia to North America, we paid less for the same cargo being transported, and it came a week earlier. This is only available to us because of good data and the relevant use of the said data by our partners. And it was very impressive, real-world example of how data made a difference, because otherwise our route was always, you know, shipments through Pacific via, you know, sea freight, and that was the norm. And that, you know, when you look at the map, you think, oh, that's going to be the cheapest option, because you just load it in the dock there, undock it on the other side of the ocean, and you're good. But somehow data analytics and good applicable use of data was able to reroute everything in the opposite direction in a route that seemed longer, but somehow worked with the timeline and with better pricing. And when you have partners like that, you want to do more business with them. You want to give them more opportunities. So I think for business growth, having access to data to begin with, it doesn't have to be good data. Having access to data is key, and then being able to clean up, process, and turn that into high quality, actionable data is the difference between, you know, being very successful leader of your industry and struggling.
That's great, and that's why we see a lot of promising in that new technologies. Of course, blockchain, part of the game when it comes to the quality of data. Do you think we may see like the standards using smart contracts and in the blockchain networks, like the standard, the quality standards, particularly?
I sure hope so. Again, I believe once something is codified, it's programmed, it is going to work as it was programmed. So the same garbage in, garbage out goes into the programming of the smart contracts. If someone qualified has the proper standards that are given to them and they program it into a smart contract, the application, the success rate of that is going to be much higher than humans trying to enforce the same set of standards and quality standards that need to be adhered to. So the smart contract actually guarantees it's going to be done the right way every single time. It's not going to get tired, it's not going to get biased, it's not going to you know, go offline because of a family emergency. No, the smart contract is going to run 24/7. The key is to get the smart contract correct when it's deployed, because again, it's most smart contracts have some things that can be changed, but they're immutable. So if you don't set the standards right, then of course it's not going to work. But if we agree to a global set of standards, and it can start here in Riyadh and go outwards to the rest of the world. It can be a collaboration between different regions, agreeing just much like ISO standards, and then deploy it onto the blockchain in a smart contract format. I think that'll help keep those standards globally.
We'll say. And in the same level of the sustainability and entrepreneurship, Dr. Urban, with your expertise in AI and emerging technologies, how can high quality data be leveraged by predict market trends and sustain business growth over time?
So I would like to offer 2-3 different readings of this, the way that I interpret your question, also following on the previous remarks.
Yes.
It is always useful to ask ourselves, what are we measuring, why and how? Starting from that question. As an example, there could be a smart city wanting to understand pedestrian traffic. And a very simple way to address that could be putting cameras in the intersections and with image recognition say, okay, these are the people passing at the intersection. And it would open immediately up a can of worms of privacy considerations, what is happening with the data, who is handling the data, who has access to the data. But instead of going with traditional cameras, today we have technology that can use interference of Wi-Fi signals as they are bouncing off from people who are walking around, and that is inherently incapable of identifying personal features. So just by using a different technology, a lot of issues are eliminated, everything is streamlined, maybe becomes even more scalable, and it can be deployed faster in a more sustainable, trust leveraging manner. As long as the information is also well shared, not only inside, but also with every stakeholder, the regulators, the public, and so on. Then the question also arises, okay, if technology is such a defining factor, what are the sources of data? What are potentially new sources of data that can be used? And for a long time now, almost 20 years, we have become accustomed to the fact that we need humans to efficiently deploy sensors around the world, because these sensors are our smartphones. Yeah. They are the best sources of data with dozens of different types of sources that we can leverage. Their location, the way they are used, the applications, such a rich source of data. However, we are only 8 billion people on the planet. We cannot sell more than 8 billion, or we cannot have more than 8 billion smartphones on the planet. So one of the unexpected consequences of autonomous vehicles is going to be that, yes, at the beginning we will think, oh, of course, cars without a driver. And it is exactly like horseless carriages. At the beginning they looked exactly like the ones with a horse, just without a horse, and our self-driving cars will look exactly like cars. But very soon we will realize, oh, it's 100 pounds, or 200 in my case, of human that is not needed in the car. Well, maybe the shape of the self-driving vehicle can be very different. And we will have an explosion of form factors, from very big to very small. And maybe in 10 years' time, a conference like this will be full with self-driving things, autonomous things, of all kinds, of all form factors, supporting completely novel use cases of data. And the last remark that I want to make as a consequence of this not only of why we measure and how and what we measure, and the unexpected sources of data, is that this imagination drives innovation. The reason why we have this enormous interest in, for example, robotics research, in particular humanoid robots, is because of the unquenchable thirst of AI applications for new kinds of data.
Yeah.
And yes, the traditional sources of human-generated data are relatively limited. So we need to generate orders of magnitude new data, which we are in the process of doing, thanks to the autonomous platforms that interacting with and interfacing with the physical world are able to generate an unbounded set of valuable data that we will then leverage and use in our applications. And this is what I would like to offer, that too many people see the economy as a zero-sum game and competition as a win-lose proposition. But the way I see it is that technology, the economy, and the way human societies work together is a positive-sum game. The more technology, the more collaboration, the more all of us together can advance.
Very well said. And I really like the term you mentioned, and I remember another one in the same way. It says always like innovations comes after regulations. And you know, like the entrepreneurs drive by innovations. So there is like another side of slowing the innovations when we add more standards, sometimes regulations on that. If you want to elaborate more on that, Dr. David.
So the way I would put it is a question rather than an answer.
Yeah.
And I think it is very important for standards bodies and for regulators to ask themselves, when is the right time to standardize and to regulate?
Yeah.
Because too late, and maybe the playing field is monopolized by a single player or a small set of players, rather than giving rise to healthy competition among a multiplicity of players. Too late, and maybe some unintended consequences play out in the market in other ways that a regulator's responsibility is to prevent. However, too soon, and it could very well be that the regulation and the standardization that has been put in place is only looking at the early iterations of that particular technology, with new and novel ways of using it and deploying it that the regulator cannot take into consideration yet. So it is a delicate balance and a very, very important responsibility. Without pretending to be able to offer a solution, I think that a smart approach is to incorporate a sunset clause in every possible regulation and standard, if possible, so that when a certain limit in time is reached, it must be re-evaluated with an equal effort as it went into its design initially, in order to establish if it is still applicable or it must be redesigned from scratch. And if that effort is not invested, then very simply the regulation expires.
I agree.
And it is back to radical innovation again. Or the standards body or the regulator can assess a new update with the various stakeholders collaborating, knowing that the technology that evolved in the meantime can thrive with the help of the new standard.
Very, very insightful thoughts. Thank you so much for sharing that. So let us like now highlight more on the other side, or like the side effect of the poor data quality. Dr. Faris, from your work with data science projects, what safeguards can organizations put in place to prevent poor quality from impacting data science projects, especially like or AI-based predictions?
An organization that is very serious about data quality should have data management or data strategy, and specifically data governance framework. Data governance will include ownership. If we have ownership, we have accountability. So we can, if anyone is not doing his job or her job, he is accountable for this. Also, we have traceability, not just when we capture the data, any process that done in the data will be captured in the system. Any transformation, any middle work will be captured. Thus, we can see the flow from its inputs to the output. Also, we have access control, who can access the data and who can change the data.
Yeah.
Data governance is very important for data quality, and also more important, enforcing the data governance, because usually most organizations have data governance, but it's not fully enforced. The second one is unify data collection method as much as we can, because we have many silos platforms. It's very difficult to unify them in one input, but we can unify them in the transformation step after the collection. Also, we can have master data to unify the definition of all our common data, and the data also a catalog. Also, we can have a process for automating the process of data processing before using, for example, machine learning or data science. Now there are many AI tools that will automate at least 80% of the usual work on cleaning the data, excluding the outliers, etc. All this can be automated to first reduce the human work. Second, to be consistent on all our work in processing the data.
That's great. And of course, the data cleansing is very important, not only for the organizations or institutions, it's also important for entrepreneurs in their own projects. So let us also, to continue this topic, the sustainability and the growth on the data quality, Mr. Malhotra, as someone experienced in technology, in a very long experience, especially in the Silicon Valley and across the global markets, of course, how can businesses use high quality data to build the trust and scale sustainable in a competitive landscape?
Sure, and I will focus on sustainability piece of things, because if you are making an application or running a product, sustaining that product to productization is the most important thing. They say ideas are easy and execution is the real thing, and that is where it comes. So standards are very important.
It is.
Publishing of standards is very, very important, and then educating your workforce using those standards is also very important. The pace of innovation of these software applications is so much, and extensive pipelines for data are there, that only having standard doesn't help. What you have to do is inbuild the tool set and the processes in such a way that these adherence to standards, testing on the standards, and in fact going beyond the boundary lines there is checked while the data is streaming in and it's going out. It's very, very important. Another thing that you need to do is involve your whole organization to be part of dog fooding these applications which you're doing, because context, perspective cannot be captured in requirements and formal requirements and design and standards. They become much more clear when people are actually using the prototypes of the product. So agile working, which comes in, is very important there. You can't expect to make these cutting edge applications using a waterfall model, for sure. Tool set has become very extensive these days. We in Google use customized tool sets, and but startups use very standardized and outside available tool sets as well. In fact, there are AIs which are building these tool sets which are used to curate data for AI applications. That is the level we're going to. And you can check those applications. One is Stream, S-T-R-I-I-M.
Yeah.
And then there are Code Labs. There are multiple of these. And in fact, 20 of these companies have become unicorns in last 1.5 years. Because the need for data curation is very important for AI application startups. What my personal experience is, it comes from the top of the startup, this mandate for checking the quality standards, then putting in your delivery tool set and ensuring the dog fooding is done with larger population. Like when these startups are releasing products, they are releasing it for dog food in Japan, in Europe, in Asia, in Middle East, all those cases in a very small areas. Like take an example, dog food for Waymo is going on right now.
Yeah.
In US, it's in 2 downtowns right now. One in San Francisco downtown and another is Austin downtown. And as a user of those dog foods, you can actually go and give the feedback, check the observations and all the stuff, and you get some reward points for doing that as well. So that more and more people get involved and they get benefited for spending the time and checking those out. So those kind of processes we need to put in place, from tool sets, from checking, dog fooding, to ensure standards are met. And we go above and beyond the standards.
Of course, that's really great. And in the last 20 minutes, let me ask more. We can have like one more round. Based on your experience in the entrepreneurship, what kind of challenges you have faced in the quality of data and how you solve it? If you elaborate more on your experience, Mr. Yasser.
I think access to data is where it starts. We talk about data quality, but in absence of data that is needed to operate at an optimal capacity, just the absence of it, just any data, is a huge handicap. And we see this in new emerging markets, new industries where you don't have the historical data, you don't quite have the product or the market cycles. And it's all new, so you don't have any compass that you can use from a data perspective. The biggest challenge that we have faced in the past is when it comes to data quality is, of course, unstructured data from multiple sources versus the structured data that you need for your business and business decisions. And so a lot of the times when a new project starts and we're looking to see viability and the opportunities, the three things we look at is, does the data exist to begin with? Is there a source, either public or private, that will allow us to have some historic insight? Then two is, depending on those sources, do we need to create more? So do we need to have any kind of hardware that is going to be required to generate new data once we are operational? And three, how do we take the existing unstructured data from multiple sources? Maybe some of them we build internally, so the output is what we want, but some of them are external and not in a format, in a structure that's usable. How do we take that and turn it into structured data that's actionable? And that, if you think about that before launching the business, it's easy because you build your business around that. You look at what's available, you look at what's obtainable, and then look at what technologies are out there to make that process uniform and have the high quality data that you want. And again, standards come into play here, depending on the industry, depending on the sensitivity of the data. What are the standards? What needs to be adhered by? Are there restrictions? Do we want to anonymize the data? Just because someone's data is out there and available does not mean as a business you need to access all of it. Maybe you just need certain data points, like David was saying. If you're trying to determine the traffic flows in a smart city, you don't need to know who the people are. You just need to know how many people pass at a certain given time. And that's applicable to a lot of different businesses. If I just want to, make a recommendation for a shirt to someone, I don't need to necessarily, their bank account number or national ID number or anything like that. All I need to know is shape, size, and a few preferences. So taking what's out there, homogenizing it for your system, and then taking that high quality data and using it for accelerating the business, accelerating growth, improving services has been an approach that has worked well. Then you have the other end of the data loop. Once you have customers, you have partners, then you want to get feedback from the performance of the relationship and loop it back into your business too. And that's also a big challenge, because how do you incorporate with your partners, whether it's a government organization or a multinational or just retail clients, how do you capture that feedback? Because that's also very valuable data, and it could be, again, unstructured or coming from different sources, and then funnel it into your data models. Because if you get the historic data and then you get the future data, did they like it? Are they going to use it again? What happened? What are the challenges? Now you have a very high quality, highly actionable data set that helps with the business. So our solution is we start before even writing a line of code or acquiring a lease or anything. We look at how are we going to absorb the data that's out there, what needs to be built, and then see if it's viable. And some business ideas are not viable because just the apparatus to get the data is too costly, and it's not worth doing. Someone comes up with a great idea and they say, oh, let's do this. And then you look at it, okay, what are we going to need to make the right decisions? And the cost of that information can be very, very high, especially if it doesn't exist and you need to create hardware and software devices to acquire it.
That's true. And that's why data is very important for the entrepreneurship and sustainability. And of course, the quality of data is also very important for the innovation. So I can go with another question to you, Dr. Orban, based on your long journey of advising entrepreneurs and of course mentoring them. What are the data quality issues they have encountered, or you have encountered, and of course how you address them to drive innovation?
I love your question, because you mentioned exactly the key component, which is the human component, right? Building, motivating, retaining, growing teams is a beautiful, complex challenge. And it is fascinating to see how a novel generation of tools is starting to help with that as well. Better and better ways, not only to recruit and to interview, but also starting to quantify things that were intangible before, like the evolution and the support of a positive company culture. How do you measure the feeling of your team, the buzz? How are the meetings? Are they productive? What is the emotional fingerprint of the interactions of people? And all of this is becoming, you can start to capture it and to envision a new kind of enterprise where the ever more sophisticated automation and the forthcoming, literally around the corner availability of AI agents on one side is complemented by human operators, powerful members of your team that are empowered and feel enfranchised to speak up, to experiment, to be proud of the tests that they execute, knowing that a lot of them will fail, and knowing that the company culture allows it and embraces this kind of iterative discovery and innovation. So designing and deploying tools that are like the ghost car for a super performing organization, and you know how to measure yourself against the best possible performance as you are in the driver's seat and try to excel in what you do. This is a novel opportunity that innovative organizations will embrace at the fullest.
Perfect, perfect. And let us, since like we have 9 more minutes to end this great discussion panel, let me ask you like a very rapid fire questions. I want to know like your opinion about it in just one phrase, or like yes or no. Will high quality data become the main competitive advantages for businesses in the next decade? What do you think, Mr. Yasser?
It already has.
It is. Dr. David?
Yes, absolutely. Without it, people won't be even able to start. They will look back and say, how could people innovate? How could people build an enterprise without what we have available today? And that will be the natural way.
Great. Dr. Faris?
Yes.
Yes, okay. How about
It is already.
It is already. So you are agree with Mr. Yasser. So now my last question to you: should data quality be regulated by strict global standards? What do you think?
That's a tough one. I think there needs to be a framework that encourages innovation.
So yes.
So yes, but we need to define strict, because that's the key word there.
That's a great answer.
If you want a single word, then the answer is no.
Okay.
But if I am allowed to give you a sentence, let's take, for example, the issue of AI models that are biased. Do we really believe that a single AI model can work for the entire world? Or are we ready to acknowledge that multiple points of view require different approaches?
Of course.
And as a consequence, different data sets that inform and allow training of different kinds of AI. And I think that is actually a richer and more resilient approach than believing that a monoculture should be instead dominating.
Very insightful thought. How about you, Dr. Faris?
In general, no. But,
so you agree with Dr. David?
But I think we should focus on applications, not
the standards itself.
Yeah,
Okay.
for example, medical applications, yes, I am with it. But if for everything, no.
I like this kind of like different perspective here. How about you, like Mr. Mahmoud?
I think yes is my answer, but with a caveat that, two caveats. One, it's not only the definition of the framework, it needs to be incorporated in the tool set and the process itself. It's unlike the days where the checklists used to operate and all that stuff. That's not the way to operate in this new world. The second aspect, which is going to Dr. Orban, I mean, who defines the bias? I mean, there can be multiple definitions to it, right?
Yes.
So flexibility in this framework is the way to go, and it can be only incorporated real time in the tools and the processes. It cannot be just published in a rule set.
Yes.
So
And we
there's a
have to-
different way. Yeah.
Exactly, and then we have to respect our difference. We have different opinions, so technology itself, we should respect the difference between them. So before we wrap up our beautiful and very insightful discussion panel, let me open the floor for our audience here. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask our distinguished guests here and speakers. Any questions? Yes, please. We need a mic, please. Here. If you start to introduce us your name and please feel free to ask.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
My name is Muhammad al-Najjar. I am ex-Aramco. I have a question here for the gentleman. In regard to somebody has a firm or a factory or a plant, and he has already maybe 100 or 100 thousands of data. And he discovered later on that he wants to utilize the artificial, what they call it, to be utilized in his plant. What he will do if he found the data for one reason or another is not reliable, is not good quality data. In this case, what do you recommend, gentlemen? Should he start deleting all these data and restart again, or maybe review data again and again, or what do you think is your suggestion? Thank you.
Very good questions. Who would like to answer? Please.
I can jump in really quick. I think all data is valuable unless it's so corrupt that it brings no insight from the said factory. I think a simple process to clean it up and restructure it with the weighted approach that if you're uncertain about certain data points, you weigh them down so they have less of a prevalence in the output. And if you're very certain about certain elements of the data, you keep them as is and just create a structured, clean data set and then enhance it with maybe a couple IoT implementations to verify the past data moving forward.
That's great. And I believe we reach out to at the end of this amazing discussion panel. I would like to thank our distinguished guests, and for sure, we are looking forward to see how entrepreneurship within sustainability will drive the innovation, of course, and by using the quality of data. Thank you, everyone. We really appreciate
Thank you
it.
indeed. I'd like to invite to the stage الأستاذ عبد الله عضو اللجنة العلمية للمؤتمر ومستشار الهيئة السعودية للمواصفات والمقاييس لتكريم المتحدثين. Starting with Mr. Bulent Brad Yassar. And Dr. David Orban. and Dr. Faris Al-Gnair. And Mr. Vivek Malhotra. And our session moderator, Dr. محمد السلمي. I'd like to invite all the speakers for a group photo, please. Thank you indeed for this wonderful session. And now we are having a 10 minutes break. After that, we'll have a session titled Saudi Regulations for Data Governance and Management in Advanced Technologies. See you in 10 minutes. Thank you.